Ma'am, 3 cars have been following us for 15 minutes. Are you expecting someone? Beatrice Foster lifted her eyes from her $20,000 phone and glanced at the driver through the rearview mirror as if he had just spoken Mandarin. The silence inside the black Mercedes lasted exactly 4 seconds before she let out a dry laugh. You're getting paranoid, or are you just fishing for a bigger tip? Warren Caldwell adjusted the rearview mirror and kept his voice calm, professional, while his fingers tapped on the steering wheel in a rhythm only he recognized. The same nervous rhythm from 15 years ago, back when he carried a gun on his hip instead of a rideshare app on his phone. The interior of the car smelled of new leather mixed with Beatrice's French perfume, something that cost more than Warren's monthly paycheck. She wore a flawless beige Chanel suit perfectly matched with a caramel Hermes bag resting on the seat beside her. On her fingers, diamond rings caught the afternoon sunlight. On her wrist, a diamond-studded Rolex ticked steadily at 4:42 p.m. Warren, in contrast, wore a white dress shirt yellowed at the armpits from 8 hours of driving, black slacks worn thin at the knees, and shoes polished so many times the leather had started to crack. His rough hands gripped the steering wheel firmly, knuckles whitening with pressure. The ride had started 20 minutes earlier in Upper East Side Manhattan, a neighborhood where houses were worth more than entire hospitals elsewhere. Beatrice had requested a premium driver through the app, a category Warren could only access because he had maintained a perfect 5-star rating for 2 straight years, despite enduring every kind of humiliation from wealthy passengers. Warehouse, industrial district, East Side, she had said as she got in, without greeting him, without making eye contact, tossing her bag onto the seat like someone throwing out trash. And don't talk to me during the ride. $480 million. That was the value of the construction empire Beatrice had inherited from her father, who had died exactly 3 years earlier in a helicopter crash that the press called a tragedy for the American real estate market. Warren knew this because he'd read about her in a magazine left behind by another wealthy passenger 2 weeks ago. The article featured America's young billionaires and showed Beatrice in carefully posed photos, always beside her husband Thomas, a man with a smile far too wide and eyes far too small. Beatrice's phone rang. Custom ringtone, classical melody Warren recognized as Vivaldi. She answered on the second ring. "I'm on my way, darling." Thomas's voice came through the speaker, loud enough for Warren to catch fragments. "You're sure you're in the right car? Is the driver trustworthy?" "It's just an Uber, Thomas. Stop being paranoid." Warren checked the side mirror. The black Civic was still 3 cars back, keeping a steady distance since the Upper East Side, but now there was also a silver Corolla to the right and a white Tacoma pickup that had appeared 2 streets behind. Classic encirclement pattern. He had seen it dozens of times back in his Federal Bureau days before the bullet shattered his left leg and ended his career. "The address is correct?" Thomas asked on the phone, and there was something in his voice that made the hairs on the back of Warren's neck bristle. "Abandoned warehouse number 47, just like you said." Abandoned warehouse. The words echoed in Warren's mind like alarm sirens. No one sets up business meetings in abandoned warehouses. At least no one honest. The black Civic accelerated, closing the distance. The Corolla shifted lanes, moving into position. The Tacoma stayed behind, blocking any attempt to turn back. Warren looked again at Beatrice through the mirror. She had ended the call and returned to typing on her phone, completely oblivious to the danger closing in around her like a steel trap. The dashboard clock read 4:51 p.m. According to the GPS, 18 minutes remained until the destination. 18 minutes until the warehouse where Warren was absolutely certain Beatrice Foster wouldn't walk out alive if he didn't act. His fingers instinctively searched for the holster that was no longer there, for the familiar weight of the Glock he had carried for 15 years. Instead, they found only his phone with the rideshare app open, displaying the route that was about to deliver a woman worth $480 million straight into death's hands. Mrs. Foster, he said, modulating his voice to sound casual. There's an accident on the freeway. I'll take a shortcut, all right? Whatever, she replied without looking up. Just get me there on time. The black Civic sped up again. The silver Corolla closed in from the side. The white Tacoma flashed its hazard lights, a classic sign between kidnappers. Get ready, it's almost time. Warren Caldwell, former federal investigator, specialist in kidnapping crimes, now a 5-star Uber driver, had exactly 16 minutes to save the life of a woman who didn't even know she needed saving. And worse, he had to do it without her thinking he was just another paranoid driver angling for a bigger tip. The traffic light ahead turned red. 58 seconds on the countdown. Warren knew this intersection like the back of his hand. 58 seconds with the car stopped, vulnerable, exposed. The black Civic pulled up exactly one car behind, the white Tacoma 2 cars back. The silver Corolla pretended to stall in the lane beside them, perfectly aligned. Mrs. Foster, Warren tried again, watching the men inside the Civic through the mirror. 2 in the front, at least 1 in the back. All wearing sunglasses on a cloudy afternoon. Are you sure about this address? That neighborhood is known for... I didn't ask for a geography lesson, Beatrice cut him off, still glued to her phone. Just drive and keep quiet. 42 seconds on the countdown. The driver of the Civic lowered his window. Smoker, Warren thought automatically. But the hand that came out wasn't holding a cigarette. It was holding a phone, aimed straight at the Mercedes' license plate. Taking a picture, confirming the target, 33 seconds. Warren slid his right hand to the center console where he kept a Swiss Army knife, a farewell gift from his bureau colleagues. Not a Glock, but better than nothing. With his left hand, he discreetly adjusted the mirror for a full view of the 3 vehicles. Your friend's running late? He asked, trying to sound casual. Beatrice finally lifted her eyes. What friends? The 3 cars that have been following us since the Upper East Side. She turned abruptly to look out the rear window. The sudden movement made her diamond earrings sparkle. You've lost your mind. Nobody's following us. Black Civic, plate ending 832, silver Corolla ending 451, white Tacoma ending 900, each with at least 2 occupants, all keeping tactical pursuit distance. 21 seconds. Beatrice stared at him through the mirror, and for the first time since she'd entered the car, she really looked at him. Warren saw the exact moment when the irritation in her eyes began to shift into something else. Not fear yet, but curiosity laced with suspicion. How do you know the plate numbers without even looking? Because I did this for 15 years, professionally, ma'am. 12 seconds. Did what? Be paranoid? Investigated kidnappings for the FBI's anti-abduction division. 7 seconds. Beatrice opened her mouth to respond, probably to call him a liar, but her phone rang again. Thomas. She answered automatically. Darling, His voice was different now, tighter, more urgent. "Where exactly are you? I need your precise location." 3 seconds. "At the light on Lexington and 59th. Why?" "Perfect. Just 15 more minutes then." 1 second. The light turned green, but Warren didn't accelerate right away. Instead, he observed. The black Civic waited 2 seconds before moving. Classic professional pursuit move. The Corolla struggled to restart and followed. The Tacoma kept 3 cars distance. "Ma'am," Warren said as he accelerated smoothly, "did your husband know you'd be taking an Uber?" Of course. It was his idea. He said it would be more discreet than using the company driver. Discreet. The word hung in the air like toxic smoke. And he chose that specific warehouse for the meeting? Yes. He said the land seller preferred discreet places, away from speculators. Warren made a gentle right turn, unnecessary for the route. The Civic followed. The Corolla followed. The Tacoma followed. "Mrs. Foster, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Does your husband have access to your bank accounts, to your will?" For the first time since she got in the car, Beatrice Foster, heiress to $480 million, a woman who treated rideshare drivers like part of the upholstery, looked genuinely rattled. "Why are you asking that?" "Because in 15 years investigating kidnappings, I learned to recognize patterns. And the pattern I'm seeing now usually ends with the victim dead in an abandoned warehouse and the spouse crying on TV while transferring the inheritance to the Cayman Islands." Beatrice's phone slid from her hands and fell onto the car's carpet. In the silence that followed, Warren could hear the engines of the 3 cars trailing them, keeping perfect distance, perfect coordination, like wolves circling a $480 million sheep. 14 minutes to the warehouse. 14 minutes to convince an arrogant woman that her husband wanted her dead. 14 minutes to pull off an escape he hadn't practiced in 5 years. 14 minutes to prove that a yellow-stained armpit rideshare driver was worth more than all the security money could buy. The dashboard clock read 5:02 p.m. when Warren Caldwell took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. "Mrs. Foster, if you want to get out of this alive, you'll have to trust me, and we have exactly 14 minutes to do it." Beatrice was still bent over, searching for the phone that had fallen into the carpet, when Warren did something no ordinary app driver would. He hit the gas hard, jerked the wheel left, and cut across 3 lanes at once, tires screaming on the asphalt. The maneuver was so precise, so professional, that Beatrice slammed her head against the front seat with the jolt. When she straightened up, ready to scream at the crazy driver, she saw the 3 cars he'd mentioned now clearly visible, accelerating to follow the move, abandoning any pretense of discretion. "Listen to me carefully because I won't repeat myself," Warren said. His voice had changed completely. It was no longer the servile tone of a driver trying to keep 5 stars. It was the commanding voice of someone used to being obeyed in life or death situations. "Warren Caldwell, badge number 39521, FBI, retired on disability after Operation Pandora's Box. 15 years in the Anti-Abduction Division, specialization in ransom kidnappings involving family members. You are being taken to die, and your husband is the mastermind." He took one hand off the wheel for 2 seconds, just enough time to pull a worn wallet from his pocket and toss it into her lap. Inside, an FBI retirement ID with a red stripe, a photo of him 10 years younger, without gray hair, without the lines of worry, but with the same alert eyes now flicking between the mirror and the road. Beside the ID, a second credential, a bravery medal awarded after rescuing a family of business owners in 2018. That could be fake, Beatrice said, but her voice trembled. The black Civic had dropped any attempt at subtlety and was now only 2 cars behind, the driver talking frantically on his phone. Anyone can fake documents these days. Warren made another sharp turn, this time to the right, onto a side street Beatrice didn't recognize. True. But not anyone would know that your father, Anthony Foster, set up a secret security protocol with the FBI after receiving threats in 2019. Golden Eagle Protocol. I was one of the 3 agents who knew about it. Your father called me personally twice for security consultations. The second time he mentioned he was worried about his son-in-law, said the guy had ambitions that didn't pair well with patience. Color drained from Beatrice's face. Nobody knew about that protocol, not even Thomas. Her father had gotten paranoid about security in his final years, especially after a rival had been kidnapped and killed even after paying ransom. Continue, she whispered. Classic family orchestrated kidnapping pattern, Warren continued, now accelerating down an avenue Beatrice realized led away from the warehouse. The spouse suggests a meetup in an isolated place, always with a plausible excuse. Secret business deal, romantic surprise, confidential meeting. Insists the victim go alone or use untraceable transport. Ride shares are perfect because later they can claim the driver was an accomplice. It muddies the investigation. The kidnappers intercept en route or at the destination. The victim dies resisting the abduction. That's the official story. The spouse inherits everything, cries at the funeral, marries the lover 6 months later. Thomas doesn't have a lover, Beatrice protested, but even she heard the lack of conviction in her voice. The truth was, Thomas spent many nights away, always with excuses about meetings, business dinners, unavoidable obligations. We have a solid marriage, 8 years together. Warren looked in the mirror and saw the silver Corolla had managed to position itself 2 lanes to the left, trying to close the ring. He did the math in his head. 3 minutes until they'd reach an area where they could force him to stop. He needed to act fast. Mrs. Foster, answer me this. Did your husband suggest taking out a life insurance policy recently? Raise the coverage? Update beneficiaries? Beatrice's silence answered for her. 3 months earlier, Thomas had insisted they take out new, more robust policies, $50 million apiece. She thought it excessive, but he argued it was asset protection, tax planning, estate planning. She signed without reading the fine print, trusting him, as she always had. Look at your phone, Warren said, doing a quick speed and distance calculation. Check your husband's recent calls, not the ones he made to you, the others. I bet you'll find numbers you don't recognize, long calls, always at the same hour. With trembling hands, Beatrice picked up the phone from the floor. The screen was cracked from the impact but still worked. She knew Thomas's phone passcode. He left it logged in the family car. She opened the sync app that shared data between devices. There it was. Dozens of calls to an unnamed number, always between 3 and 4 p.m. when she was at the gym. Calls lasting 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes. That proves nothing, Beatrice said, but now there was desperation in her voice, the frantic denial of someone feeling the ground fall away. They could be business calls. Thomas has lots of contacts I prefer not to know. It's the construction business, you know how it is? Kickbacks, deals, that stuff. She spoke too fast, trying to convince herself more than him. And even if you're right about being followed, it could be something else. A regular kidnapping for money, not Thomas. It doesn't make sense. We're happy. We have a good life. He wouldn't need to. Warren cut another corner abruptly, throwing Beatrice against the door, the black Civic fishtail trying to keep up, nearly clipping a pole. "Mrs. Foster, does your husband have access to your accounts?" "Not all of them," she answered automatically, then stopped to think. "I mean, he has power of attorney for some practical matters, you understand. But the main accounts, the holding company, the businesses, are in my name. Daddy was very clear about that in the will." "And if you die?" The question hung in the air for a few seconds. Beatrice knew the answer, always had, but never in those terms. "Thomas inherits everything. We have no children. My parents are dead. I'm an only child. We made a joint will last year." "Last year," Warren repeated, doing quick calculations while swerving around a bus. "Let me guess. It was his idea. Said it was important to be prepared, that life is uncertain, that your father didn't have time to organize everything properly." Nausea rose in Beatrice's throat. That was exactly how it had gone. Thomas had insisted for months, saying it would be irresponsible not to have the paperwork in order with such wealth. She'd resisted at first, superstitious about wills, as if making one would call death. But he'd been persistent, gentle, convincing. He took her to her favorite restaurant, opened a $5,000 bottle of wine, held her hand, and said it was out of love, out of care, wanting to protect her. "I'm getting out of the car," she said suddenly, hand on the door handle. "This is insane. You're crazy. I'm not going to sit here and listen to this. Pull over now or I call the police." "Do it," Warren replied calmly, without slowing. "Call the police. Tell them you're being kidnapped by a rideshare driver. Do you know how long it'll take them to locate you? Do you know how many units they'll send? And do you know what those 3 cars will do the moment you step out? They'll grab you in less than 30 seconds. Then the story will be that the crazy Uber driver left you in the street and the criminals took advantage." Beatrice looked back. The 3 cars were still there, keeping formation despite all the abrupt moves. It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. Normal drivers didn't drive like that, didn't pursue like that. For the first time since she'd entered the car, she really looked at Warren. She saw the scars on his hands, old marks from fights or restraints. She saw how he checked the mirrors every 3 seconds, systematic, professional. She saw the way he held the wheel. Not like an app driver trying to impress, but like someone trained in tactical driving. "If you're really a cop," she said slowly, "why are you driving for a rideshare? Why aren't you in a squad car protecting me officially?" Warren gave a bitter smile. "Because I took a bullet in my left leg 5 years ago on an operation that went wrong. 3 screws in the fibula, 2 in the tibia, 30% reduced mobility. Retired on disability at 40. A pension that barely pays rent, so I drive 12 hours a day to make ends meet and pay for my father's Alzheimer's meds." He paused, checking the mirrors again. "But instinct doesn't retire, ma'am. And my instinct is screaming that if I take you to that warehouse, I'll be signing your death warrant." Beatrice's phone rang. Thomas again. She looked at Warren, who nodded. "Answer. Put it on speaker. And don't tell him exactly where we are." With trembling hands, Beatrice answered and put the call on speaker. Thomas's voice filled the car, tense, anxious. "Darling, where are you? You should have arrived by now. Is everything okay?" "We're on our way," she answered, surprised at her own ability to keep her voice steady. "The driver took a detour, said there was an accident on the freeway." "That fucking driver!" Thomas exploded, and there was something about the outburst that didn't feel right. Too strong, too theatrical. "Put him on the phone. I'll give that incompetent a piece of my mind." "He's driving, honey. He can't talk right now." "Beatrice, this is serious." Thomas's voice changed, lower, more threatening. People are waiting. If we don't get there on time, we lose the deal. We're talking $15 million. What people? Beatrice asked, and Warren gave an approving nod. You never told me who would be at the meeting. There was a pause. 2 seconds. 3. When Thomas answered, there was thinly veiled irritation. Investors, I already told you. Important people who don't like to wait. Stop asking questions and just get here. Warren grabbed his own phone, still driving one-handed, and opened a recording app. He showed Beatrice and quickly typed on the screen, "Ask about Valentina." Beatrice frowned. Valentina was the 8-year-old daughter of their housekeeper, a girl who sometimes played at the house when her mother worked late. Honey, is Valentina still at home? I promised her a gift. The silence on the other end lasted far too long. Valentina? Who's Valentina? Beatrice's blood ran cold. Thomas had known Valentina for 3 years. The girl called him Uncle Thomas. He always bought her chocolates. Marcia's daughter, our housekeeper. Oh, right, of course, Thomas said far too quickly. No, she's not here. Marcia left early today. Actually, I gave everyone the day off. House is empty. Beatrice looked at Warren. It was Friday. Marcia never left early on Fridays. That was deep clean day. And Thomas had never, in 8 years of marriage, given staff the day off without consulting her. Warren typed another prompt, "Ask the safe code." Honey, Beatrice said, her voice starting to shake despite herself. I forgot the safe code. I need to grab some documents when I get back. The safe code, Thomas repeated, and now there was definitely something wrong in his voice. Why do you need the code right now? Leave that for later. But you know it, right? In case I need it. Of course I do, he snapped. Same as always, your father's birthday. The world tilted for Beatrice. The safe code was not her father's birthday. It never had been. It was her mother's date of death, something only she and her father knew. Thomas was lying. Thomas, who had power of attorney, who had access to accounts, who had everything except the primary safe code where the most important documents were kept, deeds, original contracts, everything that made up $480 million. Thomas, she said, no longer able to control the tremor, I'm hanging up now. The driver needs to focus on traffic. No, Beatrice, don't hang up. I need to know exactly where you are. It's important. Warren took the phone from her hand and ended the call. He immediately tossed the device out the window, watching it shatter on the asphalt. Tracking, he explained quickly. Now listen, we have at most 5 minutes before they realize we've truly broken away. I'm calling a contact in law enforcement I trust, but first I need you to do exactly what I say. He pulled a backup phone from the glove box, a simple prepaid, and handed it to her. Call your husband from this number. When he answers, say the driver snapped, threw your phone out the window, that you're scared, that you managed to grab his phone. Tell him we're going to the nearest police precinct. He'll try to talk you out of it. Record everything. With trembling fingers, Beatrice dialed. Thomas picked up on the first ring. Hello? Who is this? Thomas, it's me. The driver went crazy. He threw my phone out the window, said, you want to kill me. He's taking me to the police. The words came out in unsobs, real fear mixed with desperate acting. That son of a... Thomas exploded. Beatrice, listen, you can't go to the police. That driver is dangerous. He's probably trying to extort you. Promise him money, any amount, but don't go to a precinct. Why not? She whimpered. I'm scared, Thomas. Because there was a pause. Muffled voices in the background, voices Beatrice didn't recognize. Because I'll handle this personally. Share your location, and I'll send our security to get you." "Our security?" Beatrice repeated. "But you sent everyone home today." Silence. Then, "Beatrice, stop questioning me and do what I'm telling you. You have to trust me." "Trust you," she echoed, and something broke inside her. 8 years. 8 years sleeping beside a man now plotting her death. "Thomas, answer me one thing. Do you love me?" "What kind of question is that?" "Of course I love you. That's why I want to protect you." "Then why are 3 cars following us since the Upper East Side? Why is the address an abandoned warehouse? Why don't you know the safe code?" The silence on the other end was deafening. When Thomas spoke again, all pretense had fallen away. His voice was cold, metallic, unrecognizable. "Beatrice, you're making a very big mistake. Turn around now and we can handle this civilly." "Handle what, Thomas? My murder?" "Don't be dramatic," he said, but he didn't deny it. "Think. Do you really believe some deadbeat Uber driver is going to protect you? You have no idea what you're up against. These are professionals, Beatrice. People who don't fail. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, next week. You can't run forever." "So you admit it," she said, tears streaming freely now. "You want to kill me." "I want what's mine by right," Thomas answered with brutal coldness. "I put up with your arrogant family for 8 years, your father treating me like trash, you seeing me as a decorative accessory. I deserve compensation." "Compensation?" she repeated, incredulous. $480 million is your compensation for a marriage." "It's my compensation for having to pretend I loved you," he spat, each word like poison. "For waking up every day beside a frigid woman who only talks about work. For smiling through endless dinners while you and your father discuss deals I'd never be deemed competent enough to join." Warren gave a signal. They had enough on the recording. But Beatrice needed to hear more, needed the whole truth, however much it hurt. "Since when, Thomas? Since when have you been planning this?" "Since the day your father died," he replied with terrifying simplicity. "When I saw you crying at the funeral, vulnerable, broken, I realized it was the perfect opportunity. I convinced you to do the will, the insurance, the powers of attorney, every step calculated, every move planned, and it would have worked if not for that piece of trash driver." Warren took the phone from her hand. "Good afternoon, Mr. Foster. This is the piece of trash driver. Just wanted you to know I recorded this entire conversation, and in 15 minutes it'll be with the police. I suggest you start running." On the other end, Thomas began screaming obscenities, threats, promises of revenge. Warren hung up calmly and tossed this phone out the window too. "Now," he said, flooring the accelerator, "let's make sure you get out of this alive." The black Honda Civic came out of nowhere on the right, trying to pin Warren against the guardrail on the FDR drive. The sideswipe was avoided by inches as Warren yanked the wheel left, diving into the bus lane and forcing 2 motorcyclists to brake hard, cursing and gesturing. Beatrice clutched the seat, her knuckles white as paper, while the speedometer climbed to 75 on a road posted for 40. The Mercedes' engine wailed with the strain. This wasn't a car built for chases. It was a luxury sedan meant to chauffeur executives in comfort, not execute escape maneuvers ripped from an action movie. "Hold on tight!" Warren shouted over the engine's roar and the furious horns of swerving cars. He recognized the pursuer's technique, a classic pincer move, 2 cars squeezing from the sides while a third sealed the rear, preventing any slowdown. He'd seen it dozens of times in bureau training, had executed it in real operations. The difference now was he was on the other side, the rabbit, instead of the hunter, with a terrified civilian in the back seat instead of a trained team. The silver Corolla appeared on the left. The driver lowered his window and Beatrice saw the barrel of a gun. This wasn't a threat anymore. It was imminent execution. Warren saw it too and slammed the brakes, sending the Corolla shooting past, the would-be kill shot lost to empty air. He used the split-second chaos to cut hard right, bouncing up onto the sidewalk for 15 feet. Pedestrians leaping back, a hot dog cart toppling, scattering buns and wrappers everywhere. The maneuver was illegal, dangerous, unforgivable under normal circumstances. But normal circumstances didn't include professional killers trying to murder a $480 million heiress. "They've got guns!" Beatrice screamed the obvious, panic sharpening her voice. Her privileged life, her expensive education, all those years of an MBA abroad had not prepared her to be in the backseat of a car in flight with armed men trying to kill her on her own husband's orders. "They'll shoot us in the middle of the street with all these people around?" "They're professionals," Warren replied, pulling an illegal U-turn that slammed Beatrice against the door. "They'll make it look like a traffic accident, a shootout between criminals, anything but a contract hit. Your husband probably already has an alibi lined up, paid witnesses, a fake paper trail of threats you've been getting." He knew the protocol. He'd investigated cases like this. The surviving spouse always showed up on TV crying, saying they'd warned the police about threats, that they were afraid, that public safety was a joke. Public opinion sided with the survivor who inherited everything while putting on a show of grief. The white Tacoma appeared driving the wrong way, barreling straight at them in a suicidal head-on. Beatrice screamed, squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the impact that would turn her bones to dust, her organs to paste, her life of luxury into a newspaper obituary. But Warren had other plans. At the last possible second, close enough to see the other driver's sweat-beaded face, he jumped the curb again, this time plowing through 3 trash cans and a bus stop sign. The Tacoma shaved past, ripping off the Mercedes' right mirror, the shriek of metal tearing metal making Beatrice scream again. "Call the police," Warren ordered, tossing his third phone, another prepaid, into her lap. "Dial 911. Tell them it's a kidnapping in progress, multiple vehicles, firearms involved, need immediate backup." His hands danced on the wheel, 15 years of training flooding back his muscle memory, his body remembering what his mind had tried to forget since forced retirement. Beatrice dialed with fingers that felt like jello. When the dispatcher answered, she tried to speak, but only sobs came out. Warren grabbed the phone with one hand, still driving with the other, taking a hard turn that sent the Civic into a light pole. "Dispatch. This is retired investigator Warren Caldwell, badge number 39521. I'm with a victim of attempted kidnapping with intent to kill. 3 vehicles in pursuit. Black Honda Civic, plate ending 832, silver Toyota Corolla, ending 451, white Toyota Tacoma, ending 900. Victim is Beatrice Foster, heiress to the Foster Construction Group, confirmed mastermind, husband Thomas Foster. I have a recorded confession. Request immediate assistance. We're on the FDR Drive northbound near the Edcote Queensboro Bridge." The dispatcher's response was lost in the crash of shattering glass as the rear window exploded. The shot had come from the Corolla, which had recovered and was now flanking them on the right. Beatrice dove to the floor of the car, covering her head with her hands as glass fragments rained onto her back like deadly hail. Warren executed a controlled skid into a side street he knew well. A narrow cut between two office buildings barely wide enough for two cars abreast. It was a risky gamble. If there was a jam ahead, they'd be trapped. But he bet that at 5:40 p.m. on a Friday, the street would be relatively clear. The bet only half paid off. The street was clear, but the Civic managed to follow. The driver was good, very good, trained, a professional who wasn't intimidated by tight spaces. The Tacoma fell back, too large for the maneuver, but the Corolla looped the block. They clearly knew the area and where the narrow street fed out. They'd be waiting at the exit like predators at a burrow's mouth. "Got another phone?" Warren asked, his voice too calm for the situation. The kind of calm that comes when adrenaline spikes so high time seems to slow. Beatrice lifted her head just enough to confirm she didn't. The last device had slipped when she hit the floor. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way. Do you know anyone at the 19th Precinct, someone who can verify your identity fast?" "Captain Carter," she said, spitting out glass grit. "Frank Carter, commanding officer. My dad played tennis with him at the club. He was at Valentina's birthday last year." The mention of the housekeeper's daughter brought a wave of clarity. If she died here, Valentina would lose the unofficial godmother who paid for her private school, her English classes, her future. How many others depended indirectly on the Foster fortune? How many jobs, families, dreams would die with her on a narrow New York street? Warren did a quick calculation, 2 miles to the 19th Precinct. 5 minutes at normal speed, 2 at escape speed if they found no obstacles. But the Corolla would be waiting at the street's exit in 15 seconds, and the Civic was closing, now only 2 cars back. Split-second decision. Instead of continuing straight, he veered left, shooting up the ramp into a commercial building's parking garage. The security guard leapt aside, cursing, the wooden gate snapping like a toothpick against the Mercedes's bumper. "What are you doing?" Beatrice shouted as the car corkscrewed up the garage, tires shrieking in the tight turns, the stench of burnt rubber filling the cabin. Warren didn't answer, focused on counting floors. 3rd, 4th, 5th. On the 6th level, he saw what he wanted. A connector to the neighboring building. A concrete sky bridge modern architects love to install between towers so employees could move without going down to the street. He gunned straight for the passage, not meant for cars at all, a pedestrian walkway maybe 10 feet wide. The side mirrors ripped off as the Mercedes squeezed through, sparks spitting as metal scraped concrete. Beatrice shut her eyes, certain they'd wedge in place, trapped like rats in a pipe. Easy targets for killers who would surely come on foot to finish the job. But Warren knew this complex. 5 years earlier, he'd chased a kidnapper through these very corridors, on foot then, before the shot that ended his career. He knew the sky bridge emptied into the next building's garage, and that garage had an exit onto a different street. A street their pursuers wouldn't expect. The car jolted off the bridge into the second garage as alarms wailed everywhere, emergency lights flashing, guards running in confusion. They burst onto the street like a cannonball, the front bumper shearing off and clattering behind, the Mercedes now more war wagon than luxury sedan. Warren swung right, then left, then right again. Drawing on 2 decades of driving New York, every shortcut, every one-way, every light with a predictable cycle. 2 minutes later, with no pursuers in sight, he eased down to a mere 20 over the limit, trying to blend into traffic. "We're here," he said. When the 19th Precinct came into view, the blue and white building that meant salvation. But when he tried to pull into the lot, he spotted the white Tacoma idling across the street. They'd guessed the destination and were waiting. "Damn," he muttered the first time Beatrice had heard him curse. "We go in on foot. When I stop, you run straight to the door. Don't look back. Don't stop for anything. Got it?" Beatrice nodded, her whole body shaking now that the adrenaline had started to ebb, leaving only raw terror. Warren drove straight up onto the curb toward the precinct entrance, stopping 3 yards from the glass doors. "Now!" he shouted, and they jumped out together. Beatrice ran harder than she'd ever run, her heels clacking on concrete, her $80,000 bag abandoned in the car. Warren was right behind, limping visibly now, his left leg protesting after the ordeal at the wheel. The shot came when they were a yard from the door. It hit no one, but it shattered the precinct's glass, and 2 officers at the desk drew their weapons instantly. "Down!" someone shouted, and Beatrice hit the floor for the 2nd time that day, this time on the station's cold tile, finally safe, as officers charged outside and cries of "Police! Don't move!" echoed from the street. Warren collapsed beside her, breathing hard, his hand clamped to his left leg where the pain now screamed without mercy. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice. Not the professional concern of a cop for a victim, but something more personal, more human. "I'm alive," Beatrice said, and then she began to laugh, a hysterical, unhinged laugh. The laugh of someone who had danced with death and survived. "I'm alive because of you. Because of an Uber driver who makes $1,200 a month while my husband in a $50,000 Italian suit tried to kill me." Captain Frank Carter came running out of his office, recognized Beatrice immediately despite her state. Hair wild, clothes torn, glittering shards still lodged in the Chanel that now looked like it had come from a war zone. "Beatrice? My God, what happened?" "Attempted homicide, Captain," Warren answered, pulling his retired ID from his pocket with a shaking hand. "Mastermind is the husband, Thomas Foster. I have a recording of the confession, the victim's statement, and the 3 execution vehicles are outside, at least one with a recorded discharge of a firearm toward responding units." The captain looked from Beatrice to Warren, processing. Outside, sirens multiplied. More squad cars arriving, the net tightening. "The shooters?" he asked. "Probably running now," Warren said, "but the mastermind is either at the meeting spot, Warehouse 47 in the Eastside Industrial District, or en route to the airport. Recommend immediate blocks on cards, passport, bank accounts." Carter was already on the phone, barking orders, mobilizing the full apparatus. Beatrice stayed on the floor, staring at the ceiling, processing the fact that she was alive, that she had survived, that the man she'd slept beside for 8 years had tried to murder her for money. The tears came then. Not from fear or relief, but from mourning the marriage that never existed, the love that had always been a lie, the life she'd discovered was an elaborate fraud. The precinct interview room had walls yellowed with age and an air conditioner that made more noise than wind, but to Beatrice Foster it felt like the safest place on earth after escaping death by seconds. She sat on a hard plastic chair, wrapped in a blanket someone had brought, holding a cup of reheated coffee in hands that still trembled slightly. Across the one-way mirror table, Captain Frank Carter typed her statement while 2 other detectives took notes. Warren was in the next room giving his own statement, the recording of Thomas's confession being transcribed word for word, each poisonous syllable becoming evidence. "He was arrested 20 minutes ago," Carter reported, when his phone rang for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Tried to board a flight to Miami at JFK. He had a fake passport under the name Peter Santana and $100,000 in cash in his bag. The other 3, our triggermen, were identified on camera. One is already in custody. The other 2 are a matter of hours. He paused, studying Beatrice's face, which seemed to have aged 10 years in an afternoon. "Ms. Foster, do you need medical attention? You've got a few cuts on your face and arms." Beatrice touched her face, only now noticing the small cuts left by glass fragments, dried blood mixed with dried tears, a macabre makeup telling a story of betrayal and survival. "I'm fine," she said, her voice hoarse from screaming and crying. I need to understand. 8 years, Captain. 8 years sleeping next to a man who was planning to kill me. How did I not see it? How was I so blind?" Carter sighed. He'd watched this scene dozens of times in 20 years on the job. Psychopaths are chameleons, ma'am. They study their marks, learn exactly what to say, how to act, when to smile. Your husband likely spent years building the perfect persona, the ideal son-in-law, the devoted husband. All a lie, but a lie so carefully crafted even a trained psychologist might miss it. The door opened and Warren stepped in, limping visibly now, the adrenaline no longer masking the pain in his left leg. He'd refused medical attention until he finished his statement. Classic veteran cop stubbornness. Beatrice looked at him, really looked, for the first time since it all began. Early 50s, gray hair needing a trim, 2 days of stubble, a sweat-yellowed shirt now also stained with blood where a glass shard had nicked his shoulder. An ordinary man, invisible, the kind she would have walked past 1,000 times without noticing. That ordinary man had saved her life. "How's your leg?" she asked. The first truly personal thing she'd said to him since getting into the car 2 hours that felt like 2 lifetimes ago. "Been worse," Warren said, bracing himself on the doorframe. "At least I didn't get shot today." The attempt at humor fell into awkward silence. He cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "There's something you should know. Your husband didn't act alone. He had a mistress, Clara Mendoza, an employee at your own office. She was at your house when I called dispatch. She was arrested with him." Clara Mendoza. Beatrice knew the name. Executive assistant, 28, blonde, ambitious, always very attentive to Thomas when he visited the office. Now the pieces fit. Those business dinners that ran long, the urgent weekend meetings, the trips to close deals that never materialized. "How long?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. "From the phone records, at least 2 years," Carter replied gently. "There's a condo in her name in Long Island City, paid for with funds siphoned from your company. The NYPD Financial Crimes Task Force is already investigating." 2 years. 2 years of lies within lies, Judas kisses, family dinners while he planned her murder. Beatrice felt nausea surge, ran to the adjoining bathroom and vomited until nothing was left but bitter bile, her body purging emotional poison along with the precinct's bad coffee. A week later, Beatrice was in her office on the 30th floor of the Foster Tower, the empire her father had built and nearly died to protect. The view of New York City stretched as far as the haze would allow, millions of lives unfolding below, each with its invisible tragedies and victories. She had spent the week with attorneys, accountants, and private investigators uncovering the scope of the betrayal. Thomas had siphoned $12 million in 3 years, created shell companies, sold insider information to competitors. If the plan had worked, within 6 months he would have moved the entire fortune to offshore accounts and disappeared with Clara, leaving behind nothing but debts and lawsuits. Her secretary knocked. "Ms. Foster, there's a Warren Caldwell here to see you. No appointment, but he says you know him." Beatrice almost dropped her $300 coffee. She had tried all week to find Warren, but he'd vanished after giving his statement. No calls answered, no messages returned. "Send him in immediately." Warren walked in, awkward, clearly uncomfortable, amid corporate luxury. He wore the same worn black slacks, a blue shirt this time, also yellowed, and freshly shined but still old shoes. He carried a manila envelope. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am. I just came to bring this." He set the envelope on the $20,000 glass desk. "It's the original recording. The police have a copy. I thought you should keep it." "Warren, sit," Beatrice ordered, pointing to the Italian leather armchair. "Please, I need to talk to you." He perched on the edge of the chair as if afraid to stain the expensive leather. The contrast between them was even starker now. She on her home turf of power, he completely out of place. "I tried to find you all week," she went on. "You saved my life. You literally saved $480 million from ending up in a psychopath's hands. I need to compensate you." "No need," Warren said quickly, already standing. "I did my job, to protect and serve, even retired. I'm glad you're all right." He was nearly at the door when Beatrice spoke in the commanding voice she'd inherited from her father. "Warren Caldwell, you're going to sit in that chair and listen, or I will call every rideshare company in this city and make sure you never get another fare." He stopped, turned slowly, a half smile on his tired face. "Blackmail, Ms. Foster?" "Negotiation," she corrected, smiling for the first time since the attack. "Sit, please." He returned to the chair, sitting more comfortably this time. Beatrice opened a dossier on her executive tablet. "Warren Caldwell, 51, born in Newark, joined the FBI at 23, specialization in kidnapping, 2 medals for bravery, 1 for exceptional merit, retired on disability at 46 after taking a bullet during Operation Pandora's Box. Pension, $1,200 a month. Your father, Julian Caldwell, 78, diagnosed with Alzheimer's 3 years ago, resident at St. Francis Care Center, $2,800 a month. You rent a 1-bedroom in Jackson Heights for $1,200, drive rideshare 12 hours a day, netting about $1,500 a month after gas and maintenance." Warren stared at her, surprised. "You investigated my life?" "I investigated the life of the man who saved mine," she said. "And I learned that this man is killing himself working to pay for his father's care, that this man has more honor in his pinky than my ex-husband had in his entire body." She rotated the tablet, showing a photo. "Recognize this?" It was a new, modern building with Foster Center for Security and Intelligence on its mirrored glass facade. "I don't," he said, confused. "Because it doesn't exist yet. But it will. I'm creating a corporate security firm, something I should have done long ago. I need someone to run it. Someone with real experience, not mall guards who think they're secret agents. Starting salary $30,000 a month, full health plan including your father, company car, profit sharing." Warren was silent so long that Beatrice thought he'd frozen. When he spoke, his voice was tight. "Ms. Foster, thank you, but I can't accept. You're emotional, grateful. Give it a month and you'll regret it." "You think I'm stupid, Warren?" Beatrice asked, now serious. "You think I run a $500 million empire on impulse? I'm offering because it's good business. You proved you're better than all the expensive security I was paying for. You identified a murder plot in 15 minutes that had been brewing for 2 years. That's priceless. Or rather, it has a price, $30,000 a month." "I've got a bad leg," he countered. "I can't run. I can't do heavy field work." "I don't need you to run. I need you to think, analyze, train a team." Your experience is worth more than 100 perfect-legged guards with empty heads. Warren looked down at his calloused hands, thinking. And if I say I need time to think? Then I say you have until Monday, but I'll also say something else. Beatrice opened a drawer and took out a thick envelope. This is yours, regardless of your decision. $50,000, not a reward, not charity. Fair payment for services rendered. You saved $500 million. I'm paying 0.01%. It's an insult. It's so little, but I know you wouldn't accept more. Warren took the envelope, heavy with hundreds. $50,000, more than he earned in 2 years of driving. He could upgrade his father's care, buy better medication, maybe even sleep 8 hours a night instead of 4. I don't know what to say. Say that Monday at 8 a.m. you'll be here to start building the best corporate security firm in America, Beatrice replied. And Warren? We're adding a special training program for rideshare drivers in partnership with the platforms. How many Beatrices die every day because there isn't a Warren behind the wheel? He stood, this time with the envelope in his pocket and something different in his eyes. He was no longer the exhausted, defeated rideshare driver. He was investigator Warren Caldwell, rediscovering purpose. Monday, 8 a.m., he confirmed. At the door, he paused and turned. Ms. Foster, Beatrice, thank you. Not for the money, but for reminding me who I am. 6 months later, the Foster Center for Security and Intelligence occupied 3 floors of the corporate tower, employed 50 professionals, and held $200 million a year in contracts with the country's largest companies. Warren Caldwell, Director of Operations, was in his corner office reviewing reports when the secretary walked in. Mr. Caldwell, your 3 o'clock is here. Valentina barreled in, 8 years of pure energy, launching herself into his arms. Uncle Warren, Mom said you're taking me to see the office today. Marcia, the housekeeper who was now Beatrice's administrative assistant, followed, smiling. Sorry, sir. She's been excited since morning. No problem, Warren said, lifting the girl despite his leg's protest. Today's a special day. We're launching the Guardian program. The program was Beatrice and Warren's idea together. Free personal safety training for rideshare drivers, risk situation identification, emergency protocols. In 3 months, they trained 2,000 drivers. The stats showed a 30% reduction in crimes during rides in the covered areas. Beatrice appeared in the doorway, not the arrogant woman from 6 months earlier. The trauma had changed her, made her more humane, more aware. Valentina, ready to be Uncle Warren's assistant today? Yes, godmom, the girl chirped. Beatrice had become her official godmother after everything, guaranteeing education, health care, a future. There's something I need to tell you, Beatrice said to Warren as Valentina ran off to explore. Thomas was sentenced today. 35 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Clara got 15 as a co-conspirator. Justice, Warren said simply. Justice, Beatrice agreed. But you know what's even better? Yesterday we saved 3 women from situations like mine. The risk pattern algorithm you developed worked perfectly. 3 lives saved, Warren. 3 families not destroyed. Outside the window, New York remained chaotic, violent, unpredictable. But inside, On the 30th floor, an unlikely partnership between a traumatized heiress and a retired cop was changing the game, saving lives, proving that sometimes tragedy gives birth to purpose, that sometimes the driver you look down on is the angel who saves you, that sometimes losing everything you thought you loved is the first step to finding what really matters. Warren watched Valentina draw on the digital whiteboard, Beatrice patiently explaining how the security cameras worked, Marcia snapping proud photos. 6 months earlier, he'd been a rideshare driver broken in body and spirit. Today he ran operations that saved lives daily. He thought of his father, now in a better facility, lucid most days thanks to proper medication. He thought of every ride he'd given, every humiliation he'd swallowed, every wave of despair he'd felt. Everything had led to that moment in the car with Beatrice. Every bad experience, every scrap of knowledge, every instinct honed by pain, fate, if it existed, had a dark sense of humor but also a poetic sense of justice. The invisible driver had become the visible guardian. The arrogant passenger had become the humble ally. The well-dressed murderer was in a cell. And life, as complex and contradictory as New York on a Friday at rush hour, rolled on. "Uncle Warren!" Valentina called, showing the drawing she'd made on the digital board. It was a car with 2 stick figures inside, one driving, one in the back seat. Underneath, in careful kid handwriting, the hero driver and the lady he saved. Warren smiled, the first genuine smile in 5 years. Sometimes, very rarely, good won. Sometimes the unlikely savior arrived in the most unexpected form. And sometimes, just sometimes, a yellow-stained shirt rideshare driver was worth more than all the gold in the world.